The James Show Podcast.
Dallas has expanding their smoking ban to now include vaping, and there wasn't a whole lot of news around this, not a whole lot of pushback. The original smoking ban got a big fuss, but just to expand this right that's already been curtailed and just to take a little bit more of your freedom doesn't seem to be nearly as big of a deal now, does it? Oh, it's the old slippery slope, WFAA reports.
Here is a heads up across Dallas. The city's ban on vaping goes into effect Wednesday. The Dallas City Council passed that ordinance last year. This makes the use of e-cigarettes off limits in public places like bars, workplaces, parks, and other no-smoking areas. If you break the rules, you could be fined up to $500.
All right, now this bothers me philosophically because the people who should be in charge of making the rules for who can vape and who can smoke, or whether or not they can at all, whether or not there should be a ban on it, should be the property owner. Should be either the guy that owns the business or the guy that owns the building, or maybe they both have to agree on it. Maybe it's the same guy. But it should be the property owner that has the final call on that. You own your own property. You make the rules for it. It's a little something here in America we call freedom. Some people have forgotten about that. But the best argument I've got against him, Kathy and Argyle, it stinks and I don't like it. I agree. It stinks and I don't like it either. And I prefer to go into bars and restaurants that have no smokers, so I don't have to smell anybody's cigarette, so I don't have to smell anybody's whatever. And despite that, I can still at the same time think, well, if for people who don't agree with me and don't agree with my laws for restaurants and bars and indoor and outdoor smoking, they're allowed to live their life however they see fit. And without that ability, you really are limited in your ability to push for freedom, because you're not really for freedom. You're just for freedom when you agree with it. Sean in Royce City, you're on WBAP. Hey, Sean.
Hey, James. Hey, man, I'm going to preface this right up front. I am not a smoker. I have never smoked. My father used to smoke. My grandfather used to smoke. So there's that. Now, that being said, when did we as a collective, as Americans, lose our spine to stand up for our freedom? Because that's all this was. They made deals in the dark of night in Dallas, and I don't even live in Dallas. I mean, I live in Royce City. That's Hunt County. So this has absolutely zero effect on me. I could care less. But the thing of it is, we've lost our spine. We are not fighting for, I don't want to call them rights, but for our freedom. Because, man, as long as we're not, quote-unquote, hurting anybody else, and like you said earlier, there's no real evidence. It's kind of like cholesterol and eggs. There's no real evidence lining it up with secondhand smoke and stuff like that. So when did we stop fighting for our freedoms to do what we want with our body?
Yeah, so really about 2005 to 2015 is when that transition happened. But it wasn't like we lost our spine. It was that we stopped smoking so much. And so we didn't have a spine to begin with. It's just when most of us were smoking, there wouldn't be a smoking ban. But when it got down to about 30 to 25% of the people out there still smokers, that's when all the bans came. So we never had a spine. It's not like we ever...
So does this start when we get down to 30% of America owns guns? Does this start when we start losing our actual God-given rights?
Yes.
I mean, think about that.
The answer to that is yes. If you're in a pure democracy, it is. If you're in a constitutional republic and we still use, the bumpers, the limits that are addressed in the Constitution to stop them from making too many laws, that ship has sailed though. We are so far outside the Constitution.
Oh, yeah, we are.
So
yeah, we are.
If we're operating more like a pure democracy now than ever, which is a bad thing. So yeah, when gun ownership gets down to about 25% of the population, those rights will be curtailed too.
Well, just think about this. Think about this real quick. Driving is not a privilege. Driving is not a right. It is a privilege. That's why you have to have a license for it. So when they want you to stop going, all you little poor people, when they want you to stop going certain areas because you make things look bad, or you may smell funny, or you may not, fit into that crowd, they're going to stop you, and they're going to make sure you don't go where the rich people go. That because it's a privilege. Think on that.
Thank you, Sean in Royce City. This is Paul in McKinney. What do you think?
Hey, James, I agree with you on almost everything, and you took my thunder away here. Imagine the guy that saved his life to open up a bar, and then California, I think, was the first. So let's say he's been in business 6 months, and then all of a sudden 30% of your customers can't come to your place or will choose to not come to your place of business. So now this guy's losing 30% of his business right off the bat.
I mean, yeah, that's an obvious bad thing, but that doesn't really predicate whether or not I think something should be legal.
No, that's what I was getting back to. No, I agree. If a guy wants to have a smoking bar, he should have a smoking bar. But the lady that calls and says, well, I have an allergy. Well, then save up your money and open a restaurant that doesn't allow vaping and smoking.
I see it as, why don't you reward the restaurant or bar that is smoke free and give them your business? And if there's enough people like you, then people will cater to that demographic that wants to be smoke free.
Yeah,
I think it's
it's just crazy. The whole argument of people don't realize what they have until it's gone, and it's not long before we do. Like the guy just said about losing gun rights. What's next? It's something coming down the road.
Gotcha. All right, great call. Thank you, sir. Here's Rodney Dangerfield on the topic.
Smoking, that's another one. Try to stop smoking. That's a beauty, huh? Well, with cigarettes, my wife and I, we made a deal, my wife and I. We only smoke after sex. I got the same pack now since 1975. What bothers me is my wife. She's up to 3 packs a day.
WFAA reports that Southwestern won't have to pay a fine after they boogered up the holiday travel season a couple of years ago. This doesn't sit right.
It's a sigh of relief for Dallas-based Southwest Airlines. The Department of Transportation says the airline will not have to pay the remaining $11 million fine imposed after Southwest's major meltdown during the 2022 holiday season. Millions of passengers were impacted. Software glitches and a lack of winter weather preparations canceled about 17,000 flights between Christmas and New Year's. The Biden administration fined Southwest $140 million, but the department says Southwest has improved its operations and now it will not have to pay the entire amount.
Who did I hear talking about this earlier today? I think it was Mark Lee Van Camp and Robbins. Let me go ahead and give them credit in case it was. If it was someone else, then sorry about that. But the point is made that, what was the fine for again? They had some delays. They weren't prepared for the icy conditions. They had to cancel a whole bunch of flights. A lot of people were inconvenienced. So they get fined? Where in the law book does it say that? Because what it looks like to me is if they are not conducting business in an efficient manner, then they will pay the price themselves. You don't have to fine them. If a business is acting poorly, that's punishment enough. The customers will punish them. The customers should decide if that'll cost them money, if that'll cost them business, if they'll change their ways in the future. So what is this fine for? Because, so what, the government gets more money if Southwest screws up your flight? The hell kind of sense does that make? Zero to me. You get your luggage lost or you miss your kids' Christmas, whatever. And so the government gets $100 million from Southwest. I don't get that at all. And I don't get why anyone's okay with it. So the government can just step in. We don't like the way you're doing business here. Now give me money. What the heck is that? Because that creates a real perverse incentive there for government to just come in whenever they want. That's going to be misused for political purposes. Let me just declare that you've done a terrible job with holiday travel season and therefore I get millions of dollars. Goodness gracious. Another story, and there was nothing wrong with the report on that, by the way. This is not a criticism of WFAA. Another one that bothers me, Department of Education workers returning to work.
About 250 staffers who were laid off from the U.S. Education Department are returning to work. They were placed on administrative leave back in March while the department faced lawsuits challenging layoffs. But the last email that went out, this was on Friday, was sent to the workers saying their help was needed to tackle a backlog of civil rights complaints.
Civil rights complaints. And did you get the timeline on that? That was back in March. So it means these were Doge cuts. They didn't say that in the reporting. They didn't have to. Let's read between the lines. Doge went in. They found out all the stuff in the Department of Education that was totally unnecessary, what many would consider wasteful or unnecessary or non-essential, and they cut it. And there was court challenges saying you don't have the right to cut these people, and they won their court challenges, and so now they get to go back to work. Are they going back to work to teach a class? Are they going back to work to build a classroom? Are they going back to work to grade Scantron tests? No, they're going back to work to do what? What was that again, WFAA?
To the workers, saying their help was needed to tackle a backlog of civil rights complaints.
Civil rights complaints, yes. Well, they've come back to advance the grievances of people who are grappling about racism, sexism, I don't know, probably LGBT issues or what. It's never in favor of me, whatever it is. A bunch of people complaining about me. We got to get more people on the job. Not to bring up scores, not to work on your multiplication tables, but to further woke grievances. Great. Identity politics. That's what the Department of Education needs to be doing. I'm glad y'all are fighting for that. And then the other story that has me shaking my head a little bit, this also from WFAA. Trump had pardoned a congressman from Texas, Henry Cuellar, and it looks like the Biden administration was railroading him because he started coloring outside the lines and saying nice things about ICE deportations and things of that nature. And so it did look like a selective prosecution. Didn't seem like that big of a deal, but I get the impression Trump was pardoning him in exchange for him running for office as a Republican, and he chose Democrat. Now, they don't say that.
President Donald Trump appears to be questioning his decision to pardon a Texas congressman who's a Democrat. Last week, Trump announced that he would pardon Laredo Congressman Henry Cuellar, who he was indicted last year on bribery and money laundering charges. A letter from Cuellar's daughter prompted that pardon, but afterward, the congressman announced that he was running for re-election as a Democrat. He would not be switching parties. On social media, President Trump said in part, quote, such a lack of loyalty is something that Texas voters and Henry's daughters will not like. He went on to say, oh, well, next time, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, I think he got swindled on that one. Isn't that what you read from there? Sound like he was going to flip parties and he changed his mind and he just lied to Trump in order to get his pardon. Now they got his pardon and it's too late. He said he's going to run again as a Democrat. That's interesting. We will keep an eye on that race for you. And if anything fun happens, we'll be sure to pass it along. All right, this cracks me up. I love this whole reporting line because I'm going to play you some audio from WFAA, but I see this all the time on my X feed, Twitter feed, whatever the cool kids are calling it, on Facebook, on Instagram. Whenever I'm on social media, I see this all over the place. People pointing out that, look, they're arresting people and deporting them. ICE is picking up people and deporting them, and they don't have a criminal history. And what they mean is they don't have a criminal history above whatever immigration violations that they're constantly in violation of. So let's not play the semantic game. Let's just understand their point. Other than the immigration laws that they're breaking, they have no additional criminal history. Let me play the report, and then you'll get my retort.
And this morning, some new numbers show tens of thousands of people arrested by immigration enforcement did not have a criminal history. Since January, ICE has arrested more than 200,000 people, but research from a group connected to California Berkeley's law school shows roughly 75,000 of them, a third, did not have a criminal record, though that research does not include Border Patrol detentions, which could affect those numbers. The Trump administration has insisted those arrests have targeted murderers, rapists, and gang members.
Did you get those numbers again? 200,000 deported. What was it? 75,000 don't have an additional criminal record? Please tell me you're not saying this like it's some sort of failure of policy or effort. Please tell me you're not saying this like it's a bad thing. Here's the numbers again.
Research from a group connected to California Berkeley's law school shows roughly 75,000 of them, a third, did not have a criminal record, though that research does not include.
So 75,000 out of 200,000, about a third of them. So you're telling me 2/3 of them do have additional criminal records above and beyond their immigration violations? I think that's the story. You're griping, you're calling it a failure that we managed to remove 125,000 illegal immigrant criminals. And when I say criminals above and beyond their immigration violations. I think that's a rousing success. I think that it is a huge stretch for you to look at an operation that got rid of 2/3 of the people they deported were enhanced next level criminals. And you're going to report on the only sympathetic angle you could possibly find in that story? Oh, no, these people have no additional criminal history. Because the real kicker on that is, so what? They should be deported too. And so there seems to be this narrative, and they can sell this to people who aren't paying attention, that Trump only said he was going to deport the criminals, but now he's deporting people who haven't even committed any additional crimes, haven't committed any crimes. No, he never said that. Well, he said he was going to target criminals. Yeah, he said, and we are targeting criminals. Or if we're getting some other people in the meantime, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But you can't tell me he's not targeting criminals when 2/3 of the people that he's deporting are criminals. So what the heck is the complaint? They've got to find something to complain about. I love this idea though, but because you can go on X, go on Facebook. There'll be people right now. I have my liberal friends sharing it. They're like, he's deported 75,000 people that had no criminal record. Yeah, but they're here illegally, right? Yeah. So why do you think that bothers anybody on Team Red? Why do you think that is some sort of talking point that could possibly be persuasive to anybody who doesn't already hold your ridiculous opinion? Oh, no. Illegal immigrants were deported. That's not what we voted for. Said no Team Red member ever. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Yes, sometimes I talk like my kids, okay? I talk in memes. Coming up next, RT Trevino. He's our oil and gas expert, host of the Crude Truth podcast, also works at Pegasus Country Energy. Gas prices are low. Here's the good news. They're probably going to get even lower. RT Trevino's coming back on the James Show. You know him from the Crude Truth podcast, Pecos Country Energy, and prices seem to be pretty low. I think Buc-ee's was at like a $2.39 when I went by this morning. I was coming in from Bug Tussle and I passed the Buc-ee's in Terrell. But I also read when I got here that they might get even better than this. What do you think, RT?
Well, make no doubt about it, James, that we could really see these prices continue to go lower. Gas prices are projected to continue to decline into next year. And really, when you look at the national average, it actually dipped for AAA to $2.99 for one day last week. So those are very good signs that we could see this into 2026.
What do you attribute this to?
Well, really what we're looking at is that the United States production of crude oil has only continued to pick up. And you've heard me say it before. We're the number one producer in the world, and that's not going to slow down. This administration has opened up more federal lands in areas of large oil production, mostly Gulf of America and Alaska. And what we're going to see there is a push for these operators to come in and take advantages of these lower royalty prices and come in and drill, baby, drill. And also keep in mind, we are drilling longer laterals than ever before. So we may be down well count. However, the wells that we do have are still producing as much oil as we were last year.
So I saw that on Friday, President Donald Trump signed some executive order that reversed some decision from a previous administration about the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska. Now, how silly is it to have something called the National Petroleum Reserve, but we're not allowed to drill on it?
Yes, what we're looking at there is ways that President Trump wants to continue to produce oil in areas that we can be strategic, because keep in mind the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is used for actual emergencies in America and not for lowering the price during an election. And we right now need to continue to produce oil. And the real reason why we need oil is for the hydrocarbons that oil and natural gas produce. Why? Because electricity usage is only going to continue to go up as population increases and as data centers and AI continue to increase over the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, we're talking with RT Trevino from the Crude Truth podcast and Pecos Country Energy. Now, you talked about drilling in the Gulf of America, but with gas prices this low, or oil prices, I should say, this low, is it even profitable to put a platform out there right now?
Absolutely. What President Trump has done is lowered the royalty cost that the administration would receive in the One Big Beautiful Bill. For an example, we went from 25% to 12.5%. And that right there alone is enough to motivate operators to get back out into the Gulf of America and produce oil. Keep in mind the amount of oil that the Gulf of America produces. Two things. One, the Gulf of America alone will move the needle of the price of oil globally, meaning it competes with OPEC a lot more than West Texas and Alaska. So when we have all three of those in play, we are really producing a lot of oil and have a say at the table. And also keep in mind the amount of oil that the Gulf of America produces is so abundant that some platforms cost $1 million a day to operate. And in a 30-day cycle, that's a lot of money. And that means that they're still generating that much oil to make that profit.
So tell me about the old Baker Hughes rig count. Where are we at on that, RT?
You know, right now we are still down. We're not down as much. We were actually up Baker Hughes about two 2 and 3 rigs for 2 weeks in November, and we're still down just a little bit. But again, keep in mind, we are definitely down from where we were last year. And we do continue to see that trend going into 2026, not because of less oil production, but because of more positive efficiencies and longer laterals in the wells that we do drill.
The old horizontal drilling. All right, what question am I not asking that I should know about?
Is North Texas going to see $2 oil or $2 gasoline? God, I hope it's not oil. I know President Trump is really pushing for us to see $2 gasoline prices. Again, you said it yourself. You filled it up at $2.30. We could definitely see these 205s again here in the near future, especially as we continue to produce oil.
What's coming up on the Crude Truth podcast, RT?
Oh, my gosh. Great people coming on. I had James Mayville and Christy Antonock of Americans for Prosperity in Texas. These individuals, to everybody out there with WBAP, are fighting right alongside Governor Abbott to lower property taxes across the state right now. And that's going to be their big push going into legislation next year. So that's huge. So I'm excited about that episode coming out.
Fantastic. All right. Well, check out the Crude Truth podcast whenever you get a chance, and you'll be able to hear RT Trevino, I'm sure, on an upcoming James Show episode soon. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
All right, 2 things coming up on the James Show after the news break. We're going to keep an eye on this Jasmine Crockett situation. She's supposed to be making an announcement to make it official at 4:30. We think she's going to announce she's running for Senate. Also coming up on the James Show, how much of Obamacare was lost in fraud? How much of COVID relief funds were lost in fraud? You've been robbed blind. Find out next on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.